Hi, welcome to You Didn't Get the Memo. I'm your host, Gloria Bailey Ray. And as always, we have an awesome show for you tonight. We are going to be talking with my guest, Miss Sophia Buggs. And before we get started, I not only want to welcome all of you, but I want to remind those of you who are new to watching the show what You Didn't Get the Memo is about. It's about providing you, the viewer, with relevant, factual, mainstream information to help you be informed and to make informed decisions. A quick reminder that the You Didn't Get the Memo show is also airing live right now on Facebook, YouTube, as well as LinkedIn. Want to give a shout out to Berkeley Community Media for also airing the show live on Comcast Channel 28 and 33. Hey, just a reminder to all of you, if you have questions or comment for my guests, place them in the comment section and we'll do our very best to get to you or respond to you. Now, I think that we all can attest to the lack of quality that we see in a lot of our food. The food industry is the largest sector of our economy. Food touches everything from our health to the environment, climate change, economic inequality, and even the federal budget. Listen, food production in itself starts with soil. Soil is the foundation of the U.S. food system. Fruits, vegetables, nuts, oils, all of this comes directly from plants that are grown in soil. Also, your meats, your poultry, your dairy products, and many farmed fish come from animals that feed on plants. Wild caught fish and shellfish, which provides a tiny fraction of the typical American diet, are virtually the only exception, which is why I think that it's really important that we talk to our guests. The COVID-19 pandemic and resulting economic shutdowns have severely disrupted and exposed weaknesses in the U.S. food system. And in order for our food to get where it needs, it's imperative that farmers, food distributors, and government agencies work together to reconfigure our supply chain. More so, we all should be concerned about a key vulnerability at the very foundation of the food system, which is soil. On farms and ranches across the U.S., the health of the soil is seriously compromised today. And this is why talking to our guest, Ms. Sophia Buggs at who is an owner of Urban Farms, and she's a medicine farmer. We're going to be discussing how we can reimagine the land and how plants and herbs, all of this plays a role into our well-being. So I'd like to welcome to the show Miss Sophia. Miss Sophia Buggs, thank you so much for tuning in. It's good to see you all the way from Youngstown, Ohio. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the show. Can we hear you?
Well, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Oh, all right. Absolutely. Well, look, let's just start with talking about. I always like to level set, hear our guests talk a little bit about their backstory. One is where you grew up. And I was looking at your CV, and I mean, look, that right there would take 20, 30 minutes. But let's just talk about where you grew up, where you went to college, and who were your mentors and idols, because we're going to talk about why you even got into farming. So if you will share with our viewers a little bit, a snippet about who Miss Sophia Buggs is, aka Ladybugs.
Wow. Thank you for a wonderful introduction. And I'll make sure that this is brief. So many people have impacted my life, but I'll start out with saying that I am born and raised in Youngstown, Ohio. And my mother took me to Central Florida when I was about 10 years old. So, being in Central Florida, I went to Winter Park High School, and from Winter Park High School, I went to Bethune Cookman College, which is located in Daytona Beach, Florida. So I primarily spent probably half of my life, for the most part, in Central Florida. Uh, but I will say, because it's probably a part of the conversation as to why we are where we are, or how I've gotten where I'm at, is yes, my mother took me to Central Florida because there were many jobs happening here in Youngstown. And I'm finding ourselves back at that same kind of situation while we're in pandemic. However, my mother took us to Central Florida because my aunt, who was in the military, needed help with support with her son. And so that was an opportunity for my mother to start all over because there again weren't many jobs at that time. And my mother, who was attending YSU, could not continue attending because again she needed a job because she was a mom. And so in Central Florida is where I primarily finished out the rest of my schooling. And fast forward to Bethune-Cookman College, which is a historically Black institution. Um, I matriculated there for a while. So if you are someone who finds yourself in college, in school, or where you are educational wise, keep going. It took me a decade to graduate, and I graduated. And so I want to say that it may have a little bit to do with me being a late bloomer, or again, me not realizing who I was. And sometimes school is a great place to find yourself. School is an excellent way for you to continue to learn, all while still gaining your purpose and figuring out who you are. So I'm very grateful for that 10 years uh, it took to graduate. But I've always been in love with nature. And so because of that, my master's degree is in education with a focus of curriculum and instruction. And most of my work on my master's primarily was in the healing arts or alternative therapy or nature in some level. And although those levels of education kind of come about in a flux or in a certain kind of way of how I end up farming. So I'll stop there to just say that's my introduction to where I'm from and my educational background. And
Yeah.
my idols,
Yes. Yes.
when I was in elementary school, actually, there was a wonderful mentor named Sophia Brooks. And she was an entertainer, a personality, a public figure.
Mm-hmm.
And her and a couple of other older sisters who would, go around in the neighborhoods making sure that we stayed out of trouble by being involved with culture and art.
Yes.
And like I can look back at that now and see that's what it was. And of
Mm-hmm.
course I was pouting because I didn't want to participate. But it was a way for one, my mom to have childcare and for us to have something educational to do.
Right.
So Sophia Brooks is very monumental because my mother, when she would often come late to my performances, it was always Miss Sophia Brooks standing in the wings saying, keep trying to my
Right.
mother. And when I went off to college to return back home to meet Miss Brooks in front of the Boys and Girls Club, um, I had to actually um, share with her that I attended Bethune Cookman, and while there, my focus was music and music ed, as a matter of fact. But that ended up changing when I realized that music ed was a double major,
Right.
and so I decided to go to school. Majoring in criminal justice, maybe after 3 years of kind of already being in there and realizing, wow, this is a lot of work to do, and at the same time performing. But to return back to my hometown, to see my childhood mentor and to tell her that I attended Bethune Cookman College and I sang in the choir and sang the Star Spangled Banner for the Daytona 500. She, who has a musical career, looked at me and said, "You've done things that I've only imagined I could do."
Mm.
Because she wanted to attend Bethune Cookman College, but her family wouldn't let her. Because again, I'm from Ohio. And
Yeah.
so they felt that that was too far away. So to see someone with my initials, SB, named Sophia, who is noted in our community as a public figure, and to remember that she was like a bright light in my life, um, was a sign that I'm supposed to be exactly where I'm supposed to be.
Right.
And at
Right.
that time, telling her which was farming.
Yeah. And one of the things in talking with you and us dialoguing about being on the show was you talked about 10 years. So thank you for encouraging people to, first of all, just to keep going. You know, it's not the end
Mhm,
of your story. We sometimes
mhm,
set goals for ourselves, and that's not where we need to be. But the other thing, Sophia, that we're going to get into is, just that whole spiritual connection that you have with farming. But let's talk about why is farming so important? Because, one of the things that I've noticed lately in the news, there have been a lot of focus around young people, young adults who are in college that are now saying, you know what, I'm not looking to go back to the concrete jungle. I want to be on the farm. And I open up just talking about, one of the most precious resources that we have is our soil. And people who aren't in touch with where their food is coming from and not realizing that the soil that maybe I know for me and probably some of my peers and older adults grew up with, it is not the same. But the
mhm,
thing is, you have a whole different take on farming from not only us being fed, but also from the spiritual part of that. And also how plants, I really can't wait until we get into talking about the practical use of plants because we've got to learn how I grew up with grandmothers and big mamas who use herbs and
mhm,
plants to help us to heal ourselves. So we're going to talk about
mhm.
that. But just that one basic question, Sophia, why is farming important?
Well, farming is important is because this is where we all come from, you know, the land, the land. It's the And like she said, I won't get into the spiritual part of it, and just even a look on my face of really what it is. It's the connection that you have to land or to source. And so food is a way for you to align yourself with this whole purpose of living. And so, just as good as you are to the soil, as good as the food is going to be for you to consume this energy, this
Yeah,
power source. So it's important, one, for a lot of areas. And one is you need to make sure that you have a healthy serving amount of what I call a rainbow. I say you should eat a variety of colors, and this includes meats as well: white, dark, light, green. You know, eat two different color bell peppers, or so eating a rainbow allows you to kind of have a whole foods kind of plate, so that
hmm,
you're not putting yourself in the scarcity diet, and that you are eating to what's good for you and your own health concerns. I don't believe that we are all from the same place, and I don't believe we're all working on the same things. Therefore, food is also energy for us. So, eating a rainbow, I think, just overall gives you really good gut health, and it gives you lots of vitality, and it gives you contrast in what you're eating and what you're experiencing, as opposed to, you know, one color in the spectrum as opposed to all these other colors. So,
yeah.
those types of foods are absolutely important for us to have a high quality life.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, I just need to give a shout out. We've got some Ohio natives that are here that are viewing. We've also got Texas. We've got Arkansas. And so, these people. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and supporting the show. This is just so important. And I have to tell you, in talking with Ladybugs, I was just blown away with her knowledge of what it is that she does and how she's doing it. And so, what I'm going to do is just ask you guys, don't go anywhere. We're going to take a really quick break. But when we come back, I want to also have my guests to talk about the spiritual connection with farming. And from there, we're going to talk about the practical use of plants and how they align us to our higher consciousness. So you guys don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. All right. And thank you guys for tuning in. Really appreciate it.
myth. If you get COVID-19, you'll recover after a few days. That myth is false. We're only just beginning to understand the effects of COVID-19 on the human body, as we're starting to see more and more people identifying as long haulers who are having symptoms for weeks, if not months, after their initial infection. Continue to wear a mask, socially distance, and wash your hands. Together, we can keep COVID out of school.
For ways to keep your community safe, go to backtoschooltogether.com.
Whether it's advice on managing your anxiety or tools to help you stay grounded, Coping-19 provides a range of resources and self-care tips to help you cope with this pandemic. We can help. Find the resources that work best for you at coping-19.org.
All right, if you are just tuning in, you are tuned in to the You Didn't Get the Memo show with my awesome guest, Miss Sophia Bugs. And we are just talking about reimagining. We've got to reimagine the land. Before we went to break, we had already kind of covered the backstory with my guest, but also we talked about the importance of getting into farming. And someone made a comment about they know about the rainbow because you talk about how we need to have a variety of different vegetables and foods that's in our system. That's what it's all about. But before we went to break, one of the things that I asked was, what's the spiritual connection with farming, Sophia? Let's talk about that. And then you're going like, oh, okay. So, but there is a connection, and we need to understand that. And from there, let's just talk about plants. Let's talk about just the practical, basic use of plants that people got growing right there in their yards and not even aware of the medicinal purposes that we can use it for. So let's start with that, the spiritual connection with farming, Sophia.
So I did not know that plants had their own solar systems and their own spirit guides and their own planets and their own properties. I came to that conversation, which is plant medicine, by actually farming. When I started farming is when I fell into land stewardship, where you sync up, you have this kind of natural connection to the thing that you're doing consistently every day, which is like the biggest ball of energy that we could be connected to, which is land. And so I believe that ritualistic practice kind of sealed uh, or connect me to my spiritual purpose as a medicine woman or a medicine farmer. So plant medicine is something that I share with people that is vitally important, because once you can realize that these living beings can impact you so much, then this right here will be the very thing that pulls you back to the land, which is pulling you back to source and back to your higher self and connecting you to all of the joyous, flowing ways that you want to get connected to. So, the spiritual part of it is literally you having the experience with it, and this is why, shout out to Hoodoo Heritage Month. This is why it's important to teach our children the message or the energy of the wind, of the energy of the animals, and the medicine of the water, because these particular energies impact us every day, all the time. But the thing that is impacted the most, which is land and the very thing that you're consuming. So it's important that we connect spirituality with food. I want to say that if we're not careful, that we are going to put ourselves into a further bit of a mess with land if we don't wake up and begin to honor it as a living, breathing organism. I did a TED talk on mycelium and the spiraling movement that happens in the mycelia landscape, that we are all so connected to and can be even more connected to when we recognize these living beings as beings, alive on purpose means that you're recognizing that everything around you is a vibrational being. And when you know that, you kind of gives a more sense of reverence to things. So this is why I think we should be mindful of the foods we're consuming, because if it's the thing that you're eating and putting on yourself every single day, you want to make sure that that has a really good vibration. You
Hmm.
want to make sure that you're honoring it so it can show up and serve your
Yes.
avatar or your body at its highest capacity.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes so much sense. And just hearing you speak to that, of course, hearing it, sometimes you have to hear it and you have to hear it again and hear it again,
Mm-hmm.
but it totally makes so much sense. And I can say that I too am on that journey, just given, all of the different things that you never knew, the allergies, and you just have to be aware of what's going into your body, where it's coming from, and really
Mm-hmm.
understanding the source. So when we talk about plants as medicine, because there's a healing power in plants for ourselves. First of all, what is it that people need to know about the healing power of plants? And I'm just going to ask you to just focus on maybe a couple that people may or may not be aware of, but
Mm-hmm.
you know hey,
Mm-hmm. I'm
things
glad,
that we
and I'm
do.
glad you said that. I'm
Hmm.
glad you said that because that opens it up to, I'd like to open that up to things that we might not necessarily can get in the grocery store.
Right, come on now, come on,
Right.
Bert.
Right. And so the people's medicine is plant medicine, and plant
Mhm.
medicine is free. So the plants that
Yes.
are literally growing right outside of your door, like burdock root, yellow dock, jewelweed,
Mm.
yarrow. You might have pieces of mullein now. Goldenrod right now is like waving at us now, the yellow, beautiful yellow bursts that
Mhm.
are out there. And many people who do grow sunflowers, the heads of the sunflower literally will not only be able to feed the birds, or you can, take in that medicine also. It's great for skin, it's great for hair, and it's great fiber in the digestive tract. Seeds and and not seeds and grains are a whole nother section of the food pyramid that's also medicine. And so we'll keep going on about what's medicine, but medicine simply means the energetic flow of properties that's within certain plants. So I said goldenrod, you'll see that out there now. Right now, you'll also see burdock. You'll see some what else we got out there right now? We're ending a lot, and then you've got some bone set, and these are all old time herbs that I'm probably mentioning, but we know dandelion, and
Yeah.
there's a couple of pieces of dandelion you might see if you're in northeast climate that's still available. Its root is much more medicinal than its leaves and its flower. However, you still can gather a nice handful of those flowers and make tea with them. They're amazing. Healing
Yeah.
power of dandelion. And I'll say this one last thing. Flowers are the sex organs of the plant. They are the solar panels. So just as they are calling in the essence from a very divine aligned kundalini energy,
Mhm.
that's the medicine that you get from those plants. That's something you can't buy in the store.
Right. And may I just ask if you would do this, Sophia, just the plants that you name, tell our viewers what some of those plants could be used for. You're
Hmm.
talking about,
So, um,
dandelion.
so
Yeah.
what I love about goldenrod is that yellow plant, but people assume that they're getting allergies from, but that's not true. It's the ragweed that you're getting it from, not the goldenrod. Goldenrod is amazing for skin inflammation and pain. However, according to what I've read and how I've used goldenrod, is it works better coupled with other pain relieving herbs, so you can get its fullest effect from it. Almost like the color of its yellow illuminates the medicine that it's with. So I like to connect it with arnica, and or sometimes I like to connect it with tulsi. But goldenrod was one of the things I named. Another thing was burdock and yellow dock. Both of those are great for blood purifying. Its leaves are very bitter. So if you are trying to just take in the tea for blood purification, and I want to say that yellow dock is also good for antimicrobial, but it's its rootstock that gives you more of that, and you'll see that rootstock has that yellowish uh, color in its stem, and then the burdock has the red in its stem, the green and the red in its stem, and that's another good blood purifier. But what if again, if you were doing maybe like something that's with it's bitter but not so much in bitter in taste, and I will say this, that's another missing food in our diets is the bitters. That we don't take enough bitters into our bodies to have proper digestion. This is why many of us have acid reflux. So just taking in pinches and pieces of these plants that are around your home or where you live will give you a very diversified diet. And guess what? It's free,
Right.
right in the backyard.
That's the key. I think a lot of people are maybe more familiar with things like taking echinacea, or now with health food stores. But again, I just say knowing what's around you, what's available, understanding, reading, and that's the base of knowledge that you have about all of these different plants and
And
things. So
and I do
lab.
want to I do want to shout out coneflower, which is echinacea, because if there are some gardeners on listening, they probably have it in their garden. So
Right.
coneflower is echinacea, and I know a lot of gardeners didn't know that. The whole plant is medicinal, and you could make tinctures, you can make salves, you can make body washes, you can boil it down and make it tea.
Oh, see that right there are the types of things that we want our viewers to be able to get and to wrap their arms around. So thank you for that. Now, I just want to ask you this. I alluded to it earlier on and was talking about the soil, but why is it important to know the origin of your food?
Mm.
Because things are coming from everywhere, and what may be processed, or what the rules or standards are here in the US, or even say in California or in Ohio, it's not the same standards across the board. So why is it important to even know the origin of food?
And as I mentioned before, it's because w- you're not clear about the energy that's being performed on that land or the chemicals that they could be putting in that food. So it's so you'll hear a lot of new talk in health magazines and local community outlets where you hear them saying eat local. Eat local is good because eating local keeps money in the economy right there, and you get a chance to eat the foods that are grown exactly where you live at, and you're sharing those, I'm going to just say immunities, if that's a thing, with the pollinators, with the wind, with the land. It's almost like a way for you healing and serving yourself at the same time. If foods are coming from all over the place, then I'm going to say a lot of the things that you're eating is also um, pulling you all over the place. Um, some things we can't help, but I believe that if with just a little bit more effort, we can absolutely like make sure that we are eating as local as possible. It's a lot healthier, and it supports the local economy where you are as well.
Right. Right, absolutely. Well, thank you for that. So we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, um, Let's shift gears a little bit, and I want to ask you, what's the one thing, or at least one thing, that a person can do in their community that could potentially change the harmful impact that we make as a collective globally? Because a lot of people still aren't, in terms of their scraps, their throwaways, they're not, they're just so many other things. So I'll let you marinate on that for a minute, and we'll be right back. Thank you guys so much for all of your comments. I really appreciate it. And I will share some of those in just a bit, but we'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.
Testing. Why did the girl ask the mushroom to dance? Because he was a fun guy.
Home fire drills give your family a plan of action. Show everyone 2 ways out of the house, pick a safe meeting spot, and get there in under 2 minutes. Then practice so everyone knows exactly what to do. Go to ready.gov/fire drill and learn how to prepare your family.
Let's get back to talking smack with the side of mac and cheese.
Before we can safely come together, we need the facts on COVID-19 vaccines.
To get the facts, visit getvaccineanswers.org so you can make an informed decision when vaccines are available to you.
All right. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to the You Didn't Get the Memo show with my awesome guest, Miss Sophia Buggs, all the way out of Youngstown, Ohio. And the sister's just really sharing some really great information that I think that we all could benefit from. And from the comments with some of the viewers, definitely they can appreciate that. Before we went to break, Sophia, my question was, what is the one thing that a person can do within their community that could potentially change the harmful impact that we make as a collective globally? Because we're hearing about climate change, we're hearing all of these things that are going on, but just on a local level, off the top of your head, what are some of the things that maybe someone could do? I myself, I know, is having my own container gardens. What do I do? Why do I do it? But what would you say to people who are saying, well, I don't think that I can make any contributions? What are you going to say to that?
Oh man, that's a big one because there's so many things, but I'm definitely going to say compost. Compost, compost, compost. You know why? Because we're not making any more land anytime soon. And I will say this for sure, you're not farming if you're not growing soil. I learned that the hard way. When you start growing, you have to more than likely amend your soil if you're growing in the city or urban areas. And so amending your soil might mean you need to haul in or truck in some topsoil and some compost or some leaf compost soil in to mix in kind of what you have. I did not realize the cost of soil. And without protecting your soils throughout the seasons, you could also find yourself needing to fill beds again. So compost, compost, compost. And I want to say composting would be the very thing that would get you to better look at what you're already doing in life. It's just sort of like if you're composting, you're recycling. If you're recycling, you're reusing. If you're reusing, you're reducing, because you see the work that it takes to break down all the waste that we have every day that could be captured and turned back into high quality, nutritious soil. Right. Compost.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a word that for years we've heard, but I think there has to be a heightened focus on really doing that. All the things that you kind of throw away in scraps and put down the garbage disposal, you know what? You need to put it out there in a compost bin and be aware of what's happening. So we've got several farmers on that's tuned in, and one of the things that they talk about is being able to see those earthworms and being able to turn over the soil and be aware of that. And so I think that that's really great. Thank you for that. So let's talk about building up communities that are in food deserts. And in particular, what I want to focus on is community gardens. I know that several years ago, I seemed to see a number of those, and then they just kind of all fell by the wayside, at least I should say, in the area that I'm in. So let's talk about having community gardens as an option. I don't know, with all the acreage that you have there in Youngstown, if that is something that's even viable in your area. But what about, like you said, a lot of the areas where it's concrete, and people need to know that they can still have fresh vegetables?
So I will say, start with saying how now it's been decided that we are saying it's food sovereignty, because it is strategic as to why many of us aren't getting access to fresh foods, because we know that there's even deserts that have food for desert dwellers. So the desert part of it normally is brought in by big organizations that are trying to kind of get that catchphrase to get more funding, but it's almost like another way of possibly saying black. So food sovereignty kind of focus more on the people who are disadvantaged having access not only to fresh foods, but foods that are culturally appropriate for them. So the community garden piece is a wonderful way, urban farming, market gardening, container gardening. These are all wonderful ways that you can have supplemental, foods to work out, with other foods that you're getting. But more importantly, as we kind of move into a different era, I think people should get connected to land. Community gardens are often abandoned because people have grown to pay bills as opposed to nourish themselves and to honor the land. And because of this, they're going to pay those bills first. Every human desires to be healthy. There isn't a single person that I've spoken to who said that they did not want to eat healthy foods. However, a lot of the barriers, which are the everyday rat race performances and behaviors you have to do, who has time left to grow food? And next, how much more money do I need to spend to actually purchase high quality foods? This is where we get into the labeling of the foods, the organics. So community gardens is an excellent way. There is a way for you to partner with other people and find a lead gardener, find a spot where you can connect with maybe a neighborhood organization that has small funding. But it's definitely a challenge, but it's so worth the challenge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love, I'm going to steal this from you, the word that you said, culturally appropriate, because in community gardens, some of the things that, like, some people like rhubarb, I want, look, for me, I'm looking for some collard greens and some mustard greens, some cabbage. I want some carrots and some string beans. You see what I'm saying? But, for somebody else who's over here, I want rhubarb. I think it is critical that we also are tuned in to the word you said, vegetables that are culturally appropriate. I love that word. I'm going to have to, take that one from you. I think that's the thing. We also have a comment I just want to share with you that one of the viewers said, that it's so good to hear someone as you, young as yourself, talk about the use of plants and the good that they do for us. Her mom was very knowledgeable about the secrets of plants. And I think that we kind of lost that, at some point. We also had a viewer who said they're very familiar and know about eating the rainbow. And so those are things that are critical. And I think that it's really really key that people recognize and understand that. But yeah, you're right. But to me, Sophia, it's almost pay me now, pay me later too. If you're saying I don't have time to grow the food and to harvest, to me that's one of the most peaceful things that I can say that I have done over the years is have a garden, and to see the vegetables grow in the garden and to harvest and to eat. And it's always something about it's fresh. It's something about that taste that I don't get when I go into the store. And I know some of the viewers, the question has always come up, how do we really know that it's organic, or they're just labeling it organic, right? Because you don't know. And organic, people are paying tons of more dollars for something because it's labeled organic, and we really don't know. So what do you say to people in that regards? Of course, they're not at Ladybug's farm, so they know that they're getting the real deal. But
Sure.
how do you combat that? What do you say to people?
I always say, know your food, know your farmer.
Mm,
You know, we know Nissan, we know Mercedes Benz, right? We have
right,
representatives that we make sure that we go out of our way of still building those relationships, build a relationship with the people that grow your food.
right.
And I would even take it as far as build a relationship with the produce person in the grocery store you shop in.
Mm,
Because they're going to, when they see you, they're going to also tell you, hey, we got some fresh such and such in the back.
right.
Or, we have the such and such seasonal. It's something about when you build those networks and those relationships, they can say to you, listen, I don't know about these cucumbers that came off this truck.
Right.
And I know that to get certified organic is expensive. So that's the other piece. So I will say there is lots of produce that is organic, but it's
Hmm.
just not labeled organic because you have to pay for that.
Right.
So again, you could be actually eating organic foods.
Yeah.
Um, and according to how we are allowed to legally label it, you are not allowed to say organic if you're not actually certified organic. So even if I was organic, you would know because you either have a relationship with me and I've disclosed to you on my growing practices,
Right.
So, and
Yeah.
most farmers are open to having a conversation with their purchasers and their families. And to this point now, a lot of people have websites, they're online where they will share their mission statement,
Hmm.
and their transparency and how they grow. And they often sometimes have like a visit to the farm once a year. And some other options, a CSA, which means community supported agriculture, where you purchase these boxes of mixed produce every month or every twice a month. When you build relationships with farmers, you tend to get a little bit more in your box than
Right.
if you would if you were spending at the grocery store. And for all of you who feel that you have to really go out of your way, like and drive to go get your food, it's worth it.
Mm,
It's worth it. Get
yeah.
your coolers, get your items. I know people who drive to get water, people who drive to get honey, people who drive to get raw milk, people who drive to get their bee pollen. When these foods are like, these are medicines, it is worth driving, learning how to store them so that you can have that in your arsenal, in your apothecaries, in your cabinets throughout the year. Like, just get in the habit of that, especially now that we're in pandemic. Pandemic is really trying to tell you to make the connection.
Hello. Yes, 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 and yes. You're absolutely correct. Okay, so thank you for that.
Yes.
Because you just opened up something else when I see certified organic. I'm like, oh, okay, all right. So, sustainable agriculture, Sophia, is supposed to be the wave of the future. But what is meant by sustainable agriculture? What are they really talking about? What does that mean?
So it's a twofold to it when I
Okay.
think of sustainable agriculture. Sustainable agriculture means that you are doing less harm to the land and to your lifestyle so that you can continue to reproduce with less harm. Sustainable means that something can last a lot longer without harming the environment. However, the flip side to sustainability on a deeper level can also mean that we're trying to control things to behave a certain way when we need them to, meaning unchanged, still making things do the same thing consistently. And I've learned that concept through Vandana Shiva, who I didn't mention as considered someone who's a role model to me, where she was trying to share about how we need to reimagine, rethink about the way we are handling the land. And if we are having farms that are consistently doing the same things, like rows and rows of corn every year, that strips the land, that's not sustainable.
Yes.
But when you diversify your crops, then it puts more nitrogen fixing items into the soil, more nutrient so they calling it, they're saying that's called biodiversity,
Mm-hmm.
where the soil is impacting the plant and the plant the soil,
Mm-hmm.
so that we're not depleting it. However, we need to also make sure that we're not forcing living beings
Right.
to be in our control over and over again.
Right. Right.
That
Okay.
makes sense.
Yeah, it does. There's so much, we only have a short amount of time for us to really be able to talk, but we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, let's talk about what you want people watching the show to take away. And we've got a few more comments from some of the viewers. So, guys, thank you so much for your questions, your comments, and for tuning in. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.
Thank you for watching the You Didn't Get the Memo show with your inspirational host, Gloria Bailey Ray. It's your contributions that make this happen. To become a sponsor, send an email to youdidn'tgetthememo@gmail. That's the letter U, didn't get the memo. If you're not in a space to be a sponsor, but you like what you hear, we simply ask that you support what you like by making a contribution to the show. There are 3 ways to make an online donation. Visit paypal.me/Gloria Bailey Ray or Cash App or Venmo, Gloria Bailey Ray. Give what you can. Your support is appreciated.
All right. If you guys are just tuning in, look, you've missed a big chunk of the show, which has been awesome with my guest, Miss Sophia Buggs out of Youngstown, Ohio, who is just giving us so much education. Before we took this short break, one of the things I'd asked my guest is, what is it that you want people who are watching the show to take away? But you know what? Just before we do that, one of the things I do want to tap into Sophia is climate change. It's real. It's happening, and I would love to get your perspective. He's reeled up about. Let's talk about climate change, because this is real, and this is what's really happening. And I think my concern is that people who aren't paying attention, that it could be a travesty, to all of us, to humanity as a whole. So share your thoughts with us about climate change first, and then what do you want people who are watching this show to take away, please?
I'll just make the climate change comment super short, which is the mother is heating up, and I am one of her midwives delivering one of her greatest energies and energetic selves. I am assisting with this transformation. And as I am aligned with this mother and heating up, I am in full realization that she is not sick and she is not unwell. She's doing what she has always been doing forever. And as forever can be, she will consistently serve, take care of, and restore herself. And I'm going to make sure that I'm one of her helpers with assisting others, other living beings, into having a safe journey while she is transforming. That's my climate change response, because I don't want to say what others should be, but that's what my personal connection is.
I really and truly can relate to what you're saying. Again, as I said earlier, we're either part of the solution or we're part of the problem. And I just want to underscore you were talking about composting, and with the high rate of food waste that we see, that just intensifies, the food insecurity that we are seeing around the world. And so we've got to compost, compost, compost. I heard you say that over and over, and I really hope that that will resonate with our viewers as they are tuned in. But you wanted to, you know, talk about what is it that you want people who are watching the show to take away? Because before you answer, we also had one viewer who just said she's good, and that's why she's on the show, because I don't take it lightly. The guests that I have on the show, it's really about providing information. It's about educating. It's about inspiring. And what you've talked about here today, it really and truly is all of those things wrapped into one. So I think that that's critical that people really pay attention. So I will bring us back to what is it that you want people who are watching the show today, and there will be those who will watch the show afterwards, given the time zones that we're in. What do you want them to take away from what we have discussed today?
I'd like for them to take away that they're the spiraling movement of life itself, all wrapped up into a beautiful avatar. I'm hoping that my words and my story inspires others to be their greatest and higher selves, for them never to take advantage of the fact that you are one of the greatest of human fashions ever, and to never let someone rob you of not even a single piece of the experience that you can have with this body. My purpose is land stewardship and plant medicine, but that might not be your purpose. However, these plants, this connection to source and land, can be a source, a power source for you to be who you are. You might not farm, but maybe you're an entertainer, or maybe you're a CEO, or maybe you're an inventor, a creative, a dancer, an artist. You have an invention. Let these plants inspire, impact, and empower you to be your greater self. So you got to get there. I tell people just get outdoors. Get your feet in the grass. They call it earthing. Hug a tree. It is not weird and uncommon to be one with nature. Everything that you have, from the cotton to the blue dye to the crystals, it all comes from the land. It is so time for us to recognize that it is a living, breathing organism. And the more you're akin to it, the more you are connected to it, the better your life will be. And you'll have less of a resistance. So fall in love with nature. I'm talking about urban agriculture because that's the way, that's my residence, that's my purpose, that's what I do. Um, but know your complete self. What's your name? What does your name mean? Who are your people? Who are their people? What did they eat? What they didn't eat? What were the things that healed them? How did they love? And also take account of a journal of where you've been most of your life. What land have you been standing on, crying, loving, birthing, getting married, celebrating, backyard gatherings, babies being born, people dying? That land that you're doing all of that on in that area is a land you should be impacting with positive vibrations of being your higher self. Get outdoors, plant a tree, get a garden, eat microgreens, grow sprouts, go all natural, less chemicals, and more love into yourself from a natural perspective. Like, urban agriculture for me is almost like I paid for my health care. It kicks my butt. and at the same time it gives. I feel it takes, it allows. And just through those experiences from multiple intelligency, vibe, things I'm seeing, hearing, tasting, participating, doing, it's allowing me to have a healthier life. It's allowing me to enjoy the journey because my hips and my knees are needing the movement. And it also allows me to see that maybe I'm supposed to look the way I'm looking. There's a Venus of Willendorf in the world that is thousands of years old, and she looked just like me, and she was a hunter gatherer. So maybe I need to also readjust the system that I'm connected to. Land just recalibrates you. So find some, make some, grow some with your compost, and get connected to people that can connect you to plants. Plants connect people. The whole point of even having this expression of an avatar is to connect with others. You did not come to do this alone. I promise you that. Nature shares that. It says that. Monocropping is not healthy. Diversifying your crops are. Because that's like having a bunch of living beings that you're bumped up against, you know, resisting and pushing and moving and agitating, which is movement, the spiraling movement. That's the way I say it. You might have another way. If you have no language as to how you're connecting yourself to the land, now is the time. This is it. Your immunity depends on it. Thank
Yes.
you.
Yeah, absolutely. Namaste. Thank you so much. You guys, Miss Sophia, don't you go anywhere. All right. You stay right there. I want to say to all of you, first of all, thank you guys so much for tuning in. I am certain that you have received um, information, through this dialogue with Miss Sophia Buggs, that's going to help you and move you forward. I know for me, it most certainly has. I want to thank you guys again for tuning in, and a gentle reminder to all of you, hey, set your clocks and make sure that you are tuned in to the You Didn't Get the Memo show every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. You guys, it's definitely worth your while for sure. Also, please support our efforts by inquiring about our sponsorship packages, or if you just like to be a supporter and make a donation, you most certainly will be able to do that. Our show today is actually sponsored in part by Global Investment Companies. Be sure and follow me on all my social media platforms. And again, if you're in need of some midweek inspiration, be sure and tune in to my podcast, Real Talk with Lady G, every Thursday at 6 p.m. from 6 to 6:30 on Spreaker. That's Spreaker, Spreaker, Spreaker.com. As I always say, if you didn't take anything away from today's show, then it's really you who didn't get the memo. Remember to go out, to be kind, to pay it forward, because the quality of your life is determined by the decisions that you make. Be well. God bless. I'm out.